Get to Cedric Golden, American Statesman. And Cedric, you have covered the Longhorns for a long time, and there have been many kind of in the last 14 years little upstarts of like, oh, this is good, this is great. All I don't want to say the buzz phrase, but all those have happened. What makes this particular group of Longhorns different in that they can soldier through the hype a little bit better?
There's a catchphrase, we're back.
Yeah.
How many times have we heard that, Paul?
Yeah.
I mean, too many to count. Joe Tessitore famously said it when they beat Notre Dame and Charlie Strong's second or third year. They weren't back. Sam Ehlinger said it after they beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, and that was the last time Georgia had lost a bowl game. So that was kind of the end of Georgia losing. But I think that 3 years into the Sarkisian era, that he's put his stamp on the program recruiting wise. Good classes, top 5-10 classes. He's getting the buy-in that he needed last season. They took a real large step forward, particularly in the locker room with the senior leadership. And I think that has kind of carried over to this season. They experienced a little bit of success last season. Probably should have won more than 8 games, blew a couple of second-half leads. And now they're starting to feel the taste that fine nectar of being a top 5, number 3 in the country type team. And I think, Paul, once you start to realize that maybe you are as good as you think you can be, and going to Alabama and winning by double digits showed the nation that Texas is capable of playing with the big dogs, I think that's intoxicating for a team and addictive, and they want to feed off of that. So it'll be interesting to see how they can live with the mantle of being the hunted instead of the hunter.
Steve Sarkisian is, at least in my observation, and I don't see him every day, but handling what is one of the more challenging head coaching jobs in the country a lot better than his 2 previous predecessors, in that I think Charlie Strong didn't make a fair assessment of who Texas was when he got there. And then Tom Herman hears literally everything everyone says about him, whether it matters or not, and treats it equally. And I think that stressed him out, as where Steve Sarkisian seems that he's got more a water off a duck's back quality to him. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're 150% correct. It seems to roll off of him. Now, there are moments when he gets after us in press conferences, and I've told him, during a press conference, I like Steve Sarkisian. I like it when you get feisty with us. Mm-hmm. That's good copy. I mean, we'll take that. That's good sound bites. We'll take that. Charlie didn't understand the magnitude of dealing with the big money donors and the hangers-on that proliferate this program. And I don't think he ever had a great relationship with the Texas high school football coaches, which was a huge mistake on his part. Tom Herman was better in recruiting the state, having worked in Houston. So he knew these streets. He knew these Big 12 streets. And so the most fertile recruiting area in the state of Texas is Houston area. So Tom was right smack dab in the middle of that. So he used those inroads to have 4 winning seasons, but some off-the-field stuff led to his ouster. I think Steve understands the importance of Texas recruiting. He understands that he's got to balance being the football coach with dealing with those people who just can't help but try to have their fingers on the program. And he keeps media at a arm's distance. He doesn't get too close to us. I don't know that any of us have a real relationship with him. And it's definitely a business arrangement, and it's seeming to work in his favor. This is the 10th team he's coached, Paul, and only one other team has started 3-0, and that was the 2013 Washington team that he eventually left for the USC job.
Well, I saw him at the end of that year. Cedric, you remember they played Baylor in the Alamo Bowl in the No Defense Classic, as I like to call it. It was an absolute shootout. And Softy Mahler, who works for the flagship station in Seattle that they're on, asked him about firing his defensive coordinator after that game. And I'll never forget as long as I live. He's like, real classy, Softy, real classy. Then didn't answer the question. He was mad about it. But that game was ridiculous, and it needed to be asked. But, yeah, I've seen some of that fire from him. Now, granted, it's a decade ago, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Now, did he fire him right after the game and Salty asked him, or did he ask him about the potential to fire him?
The potential to fire him. You know, like, do you have to make a change? Yeah.
You have to ask. That's a question you have to ask. Mm-hmm. Because eventually, I guess those problems take care of themselves. But we'd be remiss if we didn't ask a coach that just gave up. What was it, 57? What did they give up in that game?
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, you'd be remiss if you didn't ask. I mean, you scored enough to win the game, but you just couldn't. You couldn't stop them. What about your DC moving forward? And after bowl games, Paul, that's what we do. Mm-hmm. We spring ahead to what's happening next. Will this guy be back? That's a legitimate question.
Yeah. But so I know he can get, I guess every coach can get rabbit ears, maybe not Lincoln Riley rabbit ears or Tom Herman rabbit ears, but they can. But we got to talk to him last year at Big 12 Media Days, and there was just a different, and granted, he's been through a lot in the last decade of his life that maybe allows him to compartmentalize things maybe a little bit better than certain coaches can.
Yeah, 49 years of age, he's lived longer years than that. Mm-hmm. He's had some issues off the field. He's overcome those issues. He's gotten a second chance at a blue blood college football institution, and a lot of people don't get a second chance. A lot of people, Paul, don't get a first chance because he's coached at USC and Texas. Those are traditional football factories, and so. He's made the most of this. He's overcome some early struggles, losing to Kansas at home, never good. Gave up 57 in that one, I might add, and so he's kind of come from to the other side of that, and he's got a great opportunity here. The schedule is not foreboding. The teams that, Kansas State is a big threat. You get Kansas State at home, you get OU on a neutral field. But what they have to avoid, starting this weekend, is they have to avoid losing those games that they have no business losing. And that's been the story of Texas football for the last several years. Can they live up to that ranking and somehow make it to the Big 12 title game, win the Big 12 title, and play in the CFP? That's the big question. Can they win the games they're supposed to win?
What is different to you about Quinn Ewers last year to this year? What has he learned and changed?
He changed his body. Mm-hmm. He's much leaner. He was playing at 218 last year. He's playing at 195 now, which I think is really skinny. And you wonder about durability. He divorced Chick-fil-A, and he's eating better, more nutrition. I think he's kind of figured out that on the rate that he was on last season, that he was not going to be an NFL quarterback, and that's still to be determined if he's going. He's been projected like a number 8 overall pick next spring. I'll believe it when I see it. Now he's taking on more of a leadership role. He's a laid back guy, Paul, who doesn't really not one of those guys who is a natural leader of men, but he understands that he needs to be because of the position he plays. After they won in Alabama, he called a Tuesday players only meeting. He called that meeting, and he urged his teammates do not get complacent. The job isn't done. That's a big win. Let's put it in the review. That's leadership. That's what he's been doing. So still a notoriously slow starter. He's bookended really slow starts against Rice and against Wyoming in between the electric performance against Alabama. So they're going to run into a team that might be able to hit them in the mouth. And if that coincides with a slow Quinn Ewers start, they could be in some trouble. So they're going to have to figure out how to start better. Last year, they started well and couldn't finish. They blew several double-digit leads. This year, they're finishing strong. In the last 2 fourth quarters, Paul, 42 points scored, including 21 in the fourth quarter of Brian Denny in Tuscaloosa. That just doesn't happen.
No, and they seem, not just Quinn Ewers, but to me, mature around the field. I know Xavier Worthy, has has had problems with drops. He had the electric play last week that woke them up right at the start of that fourth quarter. It's all of a sudden they're like, okay, here we go. But he also had a little bit of petulance would be the wrong word, but maybe immaturity or you need to grow up a little bit more. It seems like they do have more of those guys on the team who realize that a game like Alabama is great, but it doesn't mean you've done anything yet because it just meant you're 2-0.
Yeah, and they seem to be handling success a lot better. And I think Xavier Worthy is a good example of it. Just a tremendous athlete. You saw him blow up against OU last year, having some similar success this year. Had those drops in the Alamo Bowl, and then we find out months later, Sarkisian goes, he's playing with a broken hand. Why didn't you tell us? I was trying to protect the player. So much for transparency on that end, but I get it. But so he's grown up. The Xavier Worthy we're speaking with nowadays has a comfort about him. He knows he's a good player. He knows he has a future in the pros if things continue to progress this way. They just have guys who have been through the wars. Their juniors and seniors lost to Kansas. It was a 1-8 Kansas. It wasn't this Jalen Daniels bunch that's able to bite somebody on any given Saturday. So they've been in those embarrassing situations. They come through it. But now they're the ones landing the punches instead of taking them. Sarkisian is fearless. Before the Alabama game, he goes, "We're going in there throwing haymakers. We're not throwing jabs." And he said it on the ESPN game day in front of millions of people. And that's sent a message to his team. We're not afraid of anybody. And that's kind of trickled down through the locker room. And they kind of understand that there's a chance. I'm not saying it's going to happen, Paul. There's a chance that they can have a very special season. But they have to have that buy-in. That leadership's got to be on point. And most importantly, they have to deliver on Saturday.
Well, and that does. And one of those games you talked about, tomorrow, they really shouldn't have any business losing to a Baylor team that's not found itself yet. And so you don't want to be the team that lets them find themselves, right?
Yeah, you don't want to be there. You don't want to be on that end. And I know Aranda's said all week that people keep coming up to him. If there's one game we want you to win, it's that one. They'd love nothing better than to kick Texas in the bud and send them into the SEC, wondering what could have been in 2023. There's no way even if Baylor beats Texas and the Longhorns run the table, there's no way they'll be able to explain away why they lost to Baylor to the CFP committee. You're not getting a top four, even if you run the table, if you lose to Baylor. Now, if you lose to Oklahoma and then run the table after that and win the Big 12, okay, because Oklahoma's going to be ranked at the end of the year. So they know going in that this is not just one win that they need to put, on their belt. It's got to be a win that's going to keep their dreams alive that are way bigger right now than Big 12. Now, they won't tell you that. They'll go, oh, yeah, we want to be 1-0 after this week. That's coach speak. That's coach speak. We're in the media. We can look big picture. We can talk about this kind of stuff, Paul. They need to win this game, and they need to beat OU, and they need to beat Kansas. And if they're sitting at 6-0, going up against K-State and Houston, then they're legitimately a legitimate threat to represent the Big 12 in the CFP, but not until then. So it all starts tomorrow. If they win tomorrow, all of their goals are still ahead of them. Baylor's going to come out and try to give them. They're going to come swinging for the fences in the first quarter. I think Aranda's going to be more aggressive in his play calling. And I think College is going to send the house at Quinn Ewers and see what he can do.
They're going to have to, Cedric. They've got to find some fire, which they have not found in the early part of the season. And maybe seeing the burnt orange roll into the stadium is going to do that, because so far, man, it's been tough sledding for the Bears.
Well, I didn't even know Long Island had a football team. I had no idea. When you hear Long Island, I think Julius Irving, Jim Brown, Sue Bird. Those are the people I think about. I don't think about them actually having a college football team. And, and I know that Sawyer finished up great against them, but 10 of 22 for $133. Not going to cut it against the Longhorns. He's going to have a career game. Reed's going to have to get loose. And they have some athletes on the outside, but this will easily be the best team that Baylor will face this year.
Yes, absolutely. Cedric, always great to talk to you. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yes, sir. Look forward to seeing you, brother.
All right. Talk to you soon, Cedric. This is always a pleasure. Thanks a lot, Cedric Golden, Austin American Statesman. My gosh.